Is it impossible to catch fish without this right now?
He coming up to get this one now. He might got it. He got it. Oh, he let it go. He got it again. That might be a better one. Yeah, that's a big one. I saw a couple. There's only like 2 on the bottom. I panned over there to the left. Saw a little water bait. You could see him come up to get it. There we go. There's a nice fish.
If you've read anything on the internet about bass fishing, if you have watched any type of video, if you've listened to any type of podcast, I can promise you, you probably almost believe, you almost have this doubt in your mind that you can't catch fish without that little black box. Now, I call it the black box. If you're asking your question what a black box is, that little black box is called forward-facing sonar. And if you're not careful, it's easy to believe, it's easy to create this idea in your mind that you cannot catch fish without forward-facing sonar. Well, I gotta tell you, that is about as far from the truth as humanly possible.
Smallmouth always looks smaller.
So yeah, forward-facing sonar is a really good tool. It's a great way to catch fish, and yes, it does dominate tournament fishing. But if you don't have forward-facing sonar, you can still catch fish the old traditional ways: pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, on boat docks, all laydowns. That stuff still exists, and fish still live on it. The thing that we've learned about the tools that we have today is that there's a group of fish that we can now target that we didn't even know existed. That's really what's going on. What I'm about to show you in this video is a clip from my online fishing school where I was teaching my students ways that you can catch fish right now. The tools that you could use, meaning the baits, the rods, the reel, the line, and the places that you could fish to catch fish without using forward-facing sonars. So trust me, even though that's what you see about all the time, that's what you read about all the time, there's still a way to catch fish without that little black box.
About 2 weeks ago, we did a lesson just talking about how you could use forward-facing sonar, how you can use your electronics to catch fish this time of year. It's a great time to use electronics. It's almost one of the easiest times. If you're new to electronics right now, it's a good time to use them. It's kind of waning towards the worst time because schools are busting up. But in the wintertime, I really like to use my electronics to catch fish. Of course, depending on what part of the country you're in, we're kind of starting to get into springtime fishing now. And you start to see pollen, you start to see the dogwoods flowering a little bit. And so we're starting to move into a different part of fishing, which is by far my favorite. And so I want to talk about just learning how to fish without electronics. There's been so much focus on forward-facing sonar and just technology in general and a small niche of baits that there's just not that much content right now on normal fishing. It's almost like you can't catch fish fishing normally anymore. People really believe that. Almost like people believe that you can't fish normally anymore. Whatever normal is for you. Throw on a crankbait, throw on a Texas rig or a worm or whatever. Everybody feels like you got to use this and stare down with a spinning rod now, which that ain't going away no time soon. But you can still catch fish on stumps, on docks, back of creeks, on points, wanting a big crankbait over some type of offshore hump or whatever, a shell bar. That stuff still exists. Even though we're not talking about it, it still exists and you can still catch fish doing that. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you, I think I got 5 baits here that you can use to catch fish. Let's make a scenario right here. Clear water, 3 to 6 foot visibility, sunny day, partly cloudy day, 60 degrees, water temperatures in somewhere between 50 to 55. Probably the first bait that I'm going to throw, as long as I got a little ripple on the water, it's probably going to be a jerkbait. And I prefer the deeper diving jerkbait, the plus ones, longer lip ones. This is not a mega bass here. This one's actually a 13 local special. Number one, it would be a jerkbait. Clear water, 3 to 6 foot visibility, little ripple on the water. It's sunny outside. that's going to be when I'm going to throw. And a lot of that's got to do because we have spotted bass where I live. Largemouth love it too, but spotted bass, and I'll throw it on everything. It's going to be points. It's going to be. We'll get to that part. Second thing I'm going to throw, Clearwater scenario, sunny, bright sunny day. I'm going to throw a Shaky. Okay. I have 2 Shaky heads rigged up too. One, I'm throwing, this is a Z-Man Big TRD. It's like just a 4-inch long turd, right? Just like the TRD that you fish, but it's a longer one. It's one of my favorite baits this time of year. And the second one is the other worm that I designed for Z-Man. It's just the SMH worms. This one right here. You see it's totally different profile. See how this one is much more skinny? It's way more skinny than the other worm. Some days I feel like they like the skinny worm like this, and then some days I notice with spotted bass in particular, if I'm fishing for spotted bass, they really, really, I don't know what it is. This is a part of the geeking out, getting granular, like I was talking about. Spotted bass like fat, chunky, short baits. That's why they buy the TRD so good. I don't know what it is about them, but they like that style bait a lot of times over. I have found that. Now that doesn't mean some other guy may say he likes the narrow baits, but I mean, I throw this one a lot too. The SMH worms. This color's called green pumpkin goby. I got both worms are green pumpkin goby. I might have them on the deck, guys, and there ain't nothing to talk about. The last bait, I should talk about this one for Clearwater too. I do like throwing a big swim bait around too. I'll throw, and for me, this is a big swim bait. This is a 6-inch. So, and I'll talk about where I fish these baits a little bit later. So just hang around. But right now, I just want to lay out the groundwork, the base, show you what I like to throw. This is a good base lure category that I feel like it gets you bit, get you started, get that spring when you get out there and you haven't fished all winter long and you're trying to just catch some fish. Those 3 baits, the Shaky heads, the jerkbait, and a big swim bait and the small. I'll throw and I'll talk about that too. The big swim bait and the small swim bait, the finesse style swim bait. Stain water. Let's back out that whole scenario and tee up your questions in the Chatterbait. You put me in stain water. Let's flip it. Cloudy day, cloudy 50-degree day, mist and rain. One of those good springtime fishing days. I think I made a post on my Instagram a couple of days ago about my ideal fishing day for springtime fishing. March, be about the second week in March, which is coming up next week. It would probably be 60-degree air temperature, water sometime somewhere in the 50s. I really don't care about water clarity. If you want to give me a little stain, that's cool. If you want to give me clear water, that's cool too. But I would probably keep, if it was stained water, misty day, I'm going to have a chatterbait tied on. That's just a bait. Like, you can count on him. You can take him to the bank. And what I'm learning about a chatterbait is you can actually take that to the bank even when the water's clear. I've definitely underestimated how clear water that they'll bite a chatterbait. It's a really aggressive bait, so you just think it needs to be thrown in muddy water, but I've found out that you can throw it in pretty clear water. I'm pretty basic on my colors. I'll use whites, black, and brown. White, whatever other color you want to put with it. Brown and whatever color brown or green, whatever other color you want to put with it, and black, and whatever color you want to put with it. Those are the 3 colors that I use. Trailer wise, I don't get, some people geek out on trailers. You see, I got a swim bait on there. That's a Z-Man Minnows. Like, I literally grabbed this off the deck of my boat. And so, likewise, that's a bait that I throw a lot. So I've got it on my signature series rod, favorite. That's a rod that I designed to throw. This one is good for throwing medium diving crankbaits. It's good for throwing chatterbait and lipless. So this is a 7'2" medium heavy graphite composite. And then my second dirty water lure that I keep tied on, just particular right now in March. I swear I thought I was going to win West Point on this sucker, and it just didn't work out for me on day one. I believed in it so much that I couldn't even catch a limit because I was so spun out after it didn't work. But the last one would be a lipless. Love to fish a lipless in March. And the reason I like to fish the lipless is because you can fish it so much shallower. In stain water, this would be a stain water scenario bait. You fish it so shallow. And I think we underestimate how shallow groups of fish can get this time of year. When that water starts to warm, just remember that shallow water warms fastest. Shallow water warms fastest. So when you start get those 60-degree days, 70-degree days, and the water temperature starts to rise, you'll be surprised. I know we feel like anytime you're fishing for shallow, you're picking off 1, 2, 3 fish at a time, like singles. But I can't tell you how many times I found groups of fish on a lipless fishing extremely shallow, like knee-deep water, waist-deep water, however deep that is, 2, 3 foot water, 2, 3 foot deep. Talk about where you're going to fish this chatterbait. Jump to the stain water. Where are we going to throw this guy at? Where are we going to put him at? You got him tied on, Brian. You got your trailer, you got your rod, you went to favorite, you used my discount code BLAT20. You got an extra BLAT 7'2". You went and bought you a slow gear ratio reel, 6/8 to 1. You put you on some 15-pound test fluorocarbon. You're all set up. You're ready to go. What do I do next? What do I do next? All right. So this is what you're gonna do. What is chatterbait? Now, I intentionally didn't talk about spinnerbait on this one because everybody gets tired of talking about spinnerbait. But what are you going to do? You got your chatterbait tied on. Okay, I'm going to piss some people off with this one. I don't really like to throw a chatterbait around wood. It just turns over, hangs up. I'm not efficient enough. You know when I feel like a chatterbait works the best? Floating docks. I feel like it's the best floating dock lure ever created. Any kind of suspended structure, any kind of if it's vertical structure, I like chatterbait. Lily pad stems, vertical structure. Standing timber. Some standing timber can be shallow, 2, 3, 4 foot. Vertical. Dock pilings. Fixed position docks that's vertical structure. Almighty chatterbait. Hard to beat him this time of year because remember what I've said. I've said this a bunch about spawning bass and pre-spawn. In all 3, at least 2 of those stages, likely all 3 of those stages, bass like to be next to some type of vertical structure. The lily pad stems, dock pilings, floating docks. I guess floating would kind of be horizontal, but they have somewhere to get underneath it. Now I'm fishing stain water and I got any of those elements, bring him on. So for you guys in South Carolina, this would be like something you would use at Lake Greenwood. Did you know this? Did you know that the chatterbait was designed, this concept was designed here in Greenwood, South Carolina, 25 miles from me, where I'm filming this right now. I remember when it first got popular. I want to say 05, 06-ish, somewhere around in there, when it got popular. I mean, that's when it was created, when it got popular. That's when I'm going to use this guy the most. In the stain water, when I'm using a chatterbait, I feel like I'm going to throw it if I got wind or if I don't. I don't really worry about the wind quite as much. It helps to have it, but I don't worry about it as much. And it's a great bait to throw like on just mud. You know, a lot of pockets, especially this time of year, a lot of pockets will have just slick mud banks. Bass use that. So that's another great place to throw your chatterbait. Shaky head. What am I looking for with a shaky head? You name it. Only thing I don't like to throw a shaky head on is I don't like banks that are busy. So let's start there. I always tell you where to throw stuff. This is places that a shaky head is not going to be the best option. I don't really like shaky head around like lily pads or any kind of vegetation. If you got vegetation, not saying you're not going to catch fish on it. What I am saying is it's not the best lure to fish around vegetation, lily pads, hydrilla, whatever that is. It's just not the best lure. It's kind of snaggy for that stuff. I don't like it around laydowns, really. because the way it's, especially mine, the way it's set up, it's got the hook has a good bite. If you roll it over a limb, it's probably going to snag it. It's going to turn over and it's going to grab it. So now you ruin the laydown. I feel like, make sure you hear me. I'm not saying you don't catch fish on a shaky head when there's grass, and I'm not saying you don't catch fish on a shaky head when there's wood or when there's laydowns. What I'm saying is there's better options for you to be more efficient. Please tell me you understand that. I like to throw a shaky head on gravel. I throw it around rocks and just do nothing banks. Contour changes. That's where I feel like the shaky head shines. Having something that I could throw just at a contour line, at a certain depth, at some isolated rocks. I feel like that works great for that. That's what I'm going to look for with a shaky head. And if I have, some isolated stump or something like that, that's great. With the shaky head, a lot of times it looks like, when you watch some of my videos, YouTube videos, when you watch, I might have a technique breakdown that we just filmed yesterday, fishing these baits, a jerkbait, shaky head. You're going to see that maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks. It looks like I'm not throwing at anything, but I am. Especially March, April in the southeast, March, April. For you guys that live up north, it's going to be a little later, May, June. Looks like I'm going down the bank just throwing my shaky head at nothing. You see me? It's like, what is he throwing at? Polarized glasses are good because they show you dark and light spots on the bottom. All the coloration that you see on a bass, you see some pictures behind me, I have some bass in. All the colorations of a bass or to look like look like their surroundings, their environment. And they use that color difference, especially in fisheries that don't have a lot of structure. They use that bottom color, the dark, the light, the grass, the leaves on the bottom as ambush points. They feel hidden on dark spots. That's why I like to get close to the bank and throw ahead of me. Wherever I think the fish are, I like to put my boat close to that depth and look forward instead of looking at the bank, casting to the bank. Because when I look down and I put my boat in that depth range that the fish are in, I can see the bottom better and I know where to put my bait, and I keep my bait in the strike zone longer. Jerkbait. Where am I going to throw it? Where am I going to throw this guy? The jerkbait. Where I live, our lakes have a lot of contours. So I've got a lot of deeper water. That may vary where you are. So you may, like if you live in Florida, you're not going to be throwing this one. Not going to be throwing the long one. You're going to throw the short lip jerkbait, which I should have got one. But I feel like everybody knows what a short lip jerkbait looks like. I may have one here in my. I actually do have one. This is a short lip jerkbait. Short lip versus the long lip. If you're from Florida somewhere, you're probably going to want to throw this one. Probably the majority of the lakes. So this is what I'm going to look for. I'm going to chase the wind. The wind's blowing to a certain area of the lake. Go to that side. Don't go to the. I know it's going to be hard on you. Your boat's going to be rocking and rolling, and chase the wind. I can't say that enough. Chase the wind. Chase the wind. Chase the wind. One of the ways I like to fish this is down the center of a drain or a ditch. I'm not talking about deep, but down the center of a drain or ditch, anywhere between 5 to 15 foot. Okay, 5 to 15 foot down the center of a drain. Not throwing towards the bank. I'll pull up in a pocket, a drain, a ditch, and I'll throw it right down the center and fish this jerkbait. Why would you do that? Okay, clear water. Keep in mind, our context is clear water, sunny day, a little bit of wind. Why would you do that? Now, this time of the year, especially on clear water fisheries, those fish will levitate in the water column, soak up that sunlight from the bright sunny days. And when they do that, a lot of times they just get in the middle of pockets. Especially if it's a lake that doesn't have docks, it doesn't have anything for the fish to suspend next to. If it's timber, they'll suspend near that. Anything vertical, they'll suspend near that. But every lake doesn't have that. You know where the fish suspend? When the pre-spawn, when the water starts rising in water temperature, they get right down the middle, and they just sit there, and it's just like how you are. You ever go outside, it's been really cold, and then it warms up about 55, 60 degrees, and you just want to sit in your lawn chair and just sit there and just absorb the sun rays? That's what the bass, they literally, I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's what it looks like they're doing. They just sit there. A lot of times, guess what else does that? The good old mighty bait fish. Whatever they're eating, whether that's threadfin, whether that's blueback herring, whether that's alewife, whatever they start suspending higher up in the water column. What you want to look for is the little bit more stained water next to the clear water. There's still going to be little pockets of water that may be just a little bit more stained. That's where you want to fish, where it's a little bit more stained towards the lower section. More importantly, this is why. When you get a little bit more stained water, that bait fish and the fish themselves, the bass themselves, are going to use more of the top portion of the water column. Those fish are going to suspend higher. So you got them cornered a little bit more in the just a little bit more stained water. Another bait that we talked about on the live on Monday is the weightless minnow bait, Fluke, weightless Fluke. This guy, weightless, throw it down the center of them pockets in that little bit more stained water. Slowly work it. Just let it cascade down. Let it cascade down. That's a secret. Keep that one in your pocket. Last one. This one is my favorite of all time. The Lipless Crankbait. My first fishing sponsor ever was Bill Lewis. I was so proud of that because some of my fondest memories as a kid was throwing a Bill Lewis rattle trap. I don't get paid nothing from Bill Lewis. I'm telling you that like that's a true story. I grew up throwing Lipless crankbaits. And guess what? Not in grass, not ripping it, raving out of grass. I never fished grass until I was probably 28 years old. Close to 30 years old before I knew how to fish grass. We grew up throwing it on nothing. On really nothing. Depressions, muddy water. Right now is a good time to do that. Right now is a good time to throw one of these guys. The reason I like the Lipless. Here's the scenarios where I'm going to use the Lipless. I just used it at West Point last week on it. I mentioned, never be surprised. Just this time of year, there's a window for this. And that window does disappear. There's a window for this where catching fish and 4 foot or less, there's big schools of fish in 4 foot or less. Big schools where it'd be 30, 40, 50 foot fish schools in 4 foot or less. And this is that we're at that time of year. And they get on these little secondary points and knobs in the back of creeks. Basically what they are is the last deep water at the far extremities of a river, a creek, a pocket. You go back and it's 1 foot all the way back. And then there at the back somewhere, there's a point that's right next to a little pocket where it's 2.5 foot or it's 2 foot all the way across the flat. And then there's just a little channel swing where there's a point. And then right at that point, there's 4 foot of water right there in that little depression. Never underestimate how many fish can hang out in those little depressions that are like the size of my shop. There may be a huge mud flat, and then on the middle of that mud flat, there's one rock. Just one rock, 1 or 2 boulders, like the size of your boat or something. Never underestimate during the pre-spawn how many fish will gather around those areas. Schools of fish, I don't know why, but they do. Bridge corners are notorious for this. If you got a bridge corner and they pull that lake down significant amount, 4, 5, 6, 7 foot, and then at that bridge, we know what's at a bridge. There's always deeper water at a bridge. That deeper water, big schools get in that little depression on the bridge corner, or wherever it is close to that bridge. And there's nothing better to catch them on than a Lipless in those areas. The reason lipless works good because it just doesn't get too deep. It comes through the stuff. A lot of times, any kind of like a square bill, wood plug even, which I love to throw, it digs. It's like it pushes up the leaves and smut off the bottom, and it just stays filed up a lot. Where lipless just kind of, you see that like the lipless, it doesn't have a lip, so it's just not bogging down in the mud nearly as bad as a crankbait will. So it's just a more efficient bait. You fish it faster. He ain't got time to think about it. You throw it up on that hot spot. You bring it through that 4-foot depression, and he just whoop, whoop, whoop. It's one of the best. It's one of the most exciting baits you could ever fish. So for the lipless, that's when you're going to be fishing ultra shallow, stained water, going in the backs of these creeks, looking for depressions, like that last bit of deeper water in the back of a pocket. That's where you're going to catch them on the lipless. Okay.